AB had 17 targets. He had 9 catches, 67 yards. But he watched Sammy Watkins go over 100. He watched Tyreek Hill have 90. He watched Travis Kelce go over 100. He sees the ball flying around on the other side, and he's like, I'm better than them. And we're throwing the ball just as much as them, but I'm not receiving the benefit. See, a lot of what the receiver does, Skip, he view his value is tied to catches and touchdowns. So he doesn't see if I get a great block and we win the game, nah, I need catches. I need 12 for $150 and 2 tubs. We win. See what I'm talking about? And then he sees all these other receivers having these monster days. Antonio got frustrated. He let this guy goad him into it. Quarterback is also a dependent position. There's a reason why Coach Belichick took a chance on Josh Gordon. Now, he has Tom Brady. Tom Brady has played the bulk of his career without a true number 1 receiver, and he's made it work. Tom Brady hadn't had a receiver. When's the last time Tom Brady had a receiver make the Pro Bowl and win the Super Bowl? I'm not talking about Gronk, but when he had Randy Moss, Randy was going to the Pro Bowl, but they weren't winning Super Bowl.
No, they should have.
He had Wes Welker. Wes was going to the Pro Bowl, but they weren't winning Super Bowls. So Tom Brady's like, hey, I can make this thing work. But those guys view their value as if we win, if I run this route and somebody comes in behind me and catches the ball, I've done my job. That's a success. But you have to convince yourself that it's more. Your value is more than catching passes. Skip, you don't think I wanted to catch passes? So did Ed, so did Rod. And they worked just as hard as I was. They studied just like I did. But sometimes it wasn't meant to be. Sometimes TD was going to get 35 catches for $180, and Shannon was going to have to block. AB needs to understand that. But I don't fault AB.
No, I don't know.
I don't. You know what?
He needs to, but he's not going to.
You know why? Because Mike Tomlin let them do what they want to do on social media.
I agree.
So once you open that door, Skip. Once he Facebook Live, what Coach Tomlin was saying after a win, they let him go out there. This is a fraction.
2 years ago at Kansas City.
That was bad, yeah.
This is a fractured locker room because
it is.
We had a situation. Okay, this is what we're going to do with the protest. Okay, now you get one guy says, I need to see the flag. Another guy says, well, I need to see the field. And the coaching staff
says, we need to go out there and stand for the anthem. After you had agreed the night before to do this all for one and one for all.
And there you go.
Wow.
So AB doesn't want to get traded. He knows he has something special with Ben. But Ben Roethlisberger would not be making the money he's making had he stayed in the same offense that he had under Coach Cowell, which was turning around, handing the ball to Jerome Bettis and Willie Parker.
I would agree.
So it goes hand in hand.
It does. So, bottom line to everything you just said, okay, I'm going to remind you. Remember after the Facebook Live episode, we had Antonio on the show at Houston at the Super Bowl.
Correct.
And you had been very strong because you were pretty much done with him at that point, right?
Yeah.
And he wanted his money.
Yeah.
And to my surprise, if not shock, they went ahead that offseason and they gave him his money. What they give him, 4 years, $68 million. It's not huge money, but $19 million bonus, which is $19 million for him guaranteed.
Right.
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
So they went ahead and invested long-term in Antonio Brown.
Correct.
And to me, you know how I feel about diva wide receivers. They can be more trouble than they can be worth. And in Antonio's case, to me, he's gone over the edge into team-threatening self-promoter via social media because he is Mr. Social Media. I don't know if anybody's more active or more successful than he is this side of LeBron James, but he's not LeBron James. And he doesn't play the sport LeBron plays or the position in that sport where LeBron can control the whole game if he wants to.
Correct.
But in this case, he is dependent on getting the football thrown to him. And it sounded like it got so bad. I'm just reading the reports of the game Sunday. Again, the Kansas City debacle at home, but they cut it to 42-37 late in the game. And on third down, they were 3rd and goal. Ben flips it to Juju for a -2 yards, and he was upset. You could see him be upset with Antonio. I don't know what happened, but he didn't like what he did on the play. So Antonio wasn't happy, and on 4th down, Ben ran it in from 3 yards to make it 42-37. And as the team celebrated around Roethlisberger, Antonio by himself went alone back to the bench. Well, that's just part and parcel of what's going on with this troubled football team. And don't get me started on what happened, was it 2 weeks ago, when it felt like the whole team, or at least half the team, turned on Le'Veon.
There you go.
A holdout superstar who just wants his money.
Right.
And everybody said, hell with your money, right? Have you ever, I'd never seen that before.
Never.
Okay.
And to a man, everybody says, you don't talk about the one thing, you don't talk about someone's money.
Yeah.
You stay out of that.
Okay. So what did Antonio do last year in the Chicago game? He was probably frustrated with Ben over the protest issue, but remember he didn't get some balls thrown in his direction. He took the whole Gatorade.
That was Baltimore game.
That
was the Baltimore game.
Oh, I was thinking it was the Chicago game.
It was
Baltimore, and he threw it on the field,
yes,
right?
He threw.
Okay.
And then he comes back the next week against Jacksonville. He gets 19 targets. They lose, but he has like 15.
Targets?
Yeah.
Wow, 19 targets. So there was an excellent, insightful piece last week on the Undefeated by Jesse Washington, and the headline was, Antonio Brown is an Instagram All-Pro, but is that the full picture, ? Well, the piece said, no, it's not the full picture. And then the subheadline was, the best wide receiver in the NFL has a lot to say, but only on social media, meaning you can't interview him in open forums after the games because he won't even submit to that. He won't subject himself to open Q&A sort of questions. And in the piece, the writer says that he was threatened by Antonio Brown via social media, by direct message, because he dared to try to interview some people close to Antonio about what's he really like. So it got kind of ugly at the end of the piece, but I think there's a different Antonio, because he's got one of the best smiles in sports, if not the best smile. But I think there's something underneath there that's not all that pretty, and it's just another indication of how, to your point, fractured or troubled this football team is, which is why I'm still picking Cincinnati to win this division.
The thing is, Skip, that you always have to be careful of is that you reward negative behavior. If a child goes to the store and they fall on the floor and they start yelling and screaming, if you give them ice cream, you give them candy, what happens every time they go to the store and you don't give them that? So Antonio was lashing out. He was doing things, and they rewarded him.
They did.
At first, Skip, he was like, I'm threatening to do this, and he was bucking. They gave him an extra $2 or $3 million in his contract. Last year, he did what he did, and they rewarded him. So the thing is, you have to be careful. Coach Tomlin should set parameters. Now, I'm not telling you, look, you don't have, like I said, in New England, they had some Mr. Kraft, Coach Belichick, Tom Brady. But from a locker room perspective, you don't see this.
Yep.
And in Pittsburgh, you're seeing this. They're too talented to be in the situation that they're in right now. But when you have a lot of bickering, and it seems to be a lot of people are jealous, or it's we. No, it ain't no we. It's the Steelers. It's the Steelers, and then it's the players. And as soon as you understand that, and this is why, and I talked to someone in that Steelers locker room, a player, I said, this is why you're never going to have guaranteed contracts. Because you can't even get along with somebody in your locker room. You give less than a D about somebody in somebody else's locker room, and the owners know that. They pit you against each other, you fall for it, and they sit back, we got them again. I don't get it. Dude had 17 targets, Skip. How many balls does Antonio Brown expect the Steelers to throw at him? Think about that, Skip. Antonio, over the last 3 to 4 years, has way more targets than anybody else.
He does.
He should never complain. If you threw me that many balls, Skip, I can go a game without catching a pass. Because I know the next game you're going to make up for it by throwing me 21 targets.
So I always say that beyond baseball, hockey, basketball, football